screen.
Mm.
You know, your thing you had.
Oh yes,
Your
yes,
case and
yes,
everything.
yes,
That's
yes,
all done
that,
now.
right, yeah, yeah, we're not talking about
And
that
that's
anymore.
it, it's all done.
Yeah.
You got anything in it?
We've got quite a few new pictures, yeah. I'm just saying.
Is that one of them? Or not?
Yes, that's right.
One or two.
Well, I think everybody has. That was in the mess when the people were final prices of the existence when things were shut down. Yeah, right. So. Yeah. We went down and had a visit of the One of the pictures of that Blackie's got that I've got coming is the one which you might remember where you've got Bob Lightfoot in I think an F1 coming very, very low, and there's a GCA hut, you know, red and white checkers, and it's coming. You can just see it coming, you know, and it's at the level of the GCA hut, and it's an incredibly impressive shot. So, I mean, if you sort of try to sell something like that, that would sell like hotcakes.
It's in a book.
It's in the book. That's right.
Well, one of the books which one is it?
Blackie's doing me a blown up picture of it.
That's a pretty.
It is. Yeah.
Lightning.
Well, it's some things, elevators or whatever that.
Yeah?
You fancy one, Davey?
Yeah. They were seeing how big they were. We have about a ton and a half. We're going to put it on.
Welcome again. This is again. We've been very, very fortunate in the last few years to have had a series of Lightning pilots come and chat to us, and we have been very fortunate this time to get Alan Page. Some of you will know him by his what kind of name was it? Just your, but was it your code name, or what did they call
That's
it?
what everyone calls me.
Yeah, Porky Page. In all the books, that's what it's down as. Although he's plainly far from Porky. Alan would like in the past we've had sort of formal lectures, and we've had some where it was less formal. Alan's preferred format for this is simply to answer questions and let it sort of develop and just go with the flow, as it were. It's the sort of thing where, you know, when we're chatting on the phone, I've spoken to him on the phone, and after about an hour he said to me, well, I don't know what I'll talk about. And I've said, well, we have just been talking since 7:45, and we've been talking about lightnings, and it's all been jolly interesting, and that's exactly what we want. So, I don't know if you want to have a little sort of introductory chat about a little introductory preamble, and then basically throw it open. And if anybody has any questions at all, and I'd like you just to try to develop it a bit in the way we do in the review. You know, this is the kind of format for just now, and I hope it goes well. And ask you all to, if there's anything you ever wanted to know about lightnings and lighting operations, now's your opportunity. Thanks very much, Porky.
Charles.
The floor's yours.
Hi everyone. Right. Just give you a little bit of background first. Okay, Charles has been trying to badger me into this for years and eventually succeeded. I think he wore me down. Basically, give you a bit of background. I went through flying training between 75 and 78, and I started on the University Air Squadron. I got a cadetship while I was there. I left university, went through flying training at Cranwell on the JP5, and then Valley on the Hawk, and then out to Broadie for attack weapons on the Hawk. So I came here right at the end of 80. Started my course in Jan 81, did 4 years on a level squadron, then went to the training flight in about, it must have been March or April 85, did a year on the training flight as a taxis instructor and as an instrument rating examiner, and then I went to 5 Squadron for 18 months and watched that wind down. I was there on the last day. And then I thought I was going to go to the Missile City. There was any place left to go, going sort of right to left along the flight line. It was just Missile City. I was going to drop off the end of the world. But luckily for me, they decided I would go to back to 11 Squadron instead. So I went back to 11 and I was there on the last day. And then I sort of shut the hangar doors and threw away the keys, walked down to the mess, picked up my bag and went home. And that was about it. I left the Air Force then. Sort of almost by design, it sort of worked out rather well. And then I went to Air Europe, and I did 18 months with Air Europe flying the 757. And I joined British Airways in Jan 90, initially flying the 747-100 and 200, and now I'm on the 747-400 worldwide out of Heathrow and Gatwick. So that's me. as Charles said, what I'm going to do is I made a little list of a few things. I did this last night. I mean, I could stand here and talk for an hour, but I find myself incredibly boring and I don't want you to. So I'm not going to do that. Basically, what I'll say, I think there's a little intro. I mean, you probably know more about the aeroplane and the history of the aircraft than I do, quite frankly. All I'll say to you is that the aircraft, basically, its role, as you probably all know, changed hugely from the 60s up until the late 80s when we left. And even in the time when I was here, from the beginning of 80 up till 88, we had a huge changeover in the role of the aircraft, the type of flying we did. When I started here, a lot of our flying was flying around at medium level, which for us was sort of 20 to 40,000 feet, boring holes in the sky, flying around, not really being fighter pilots, all head down, in the radar, a lot of that sort of stuff. And we also did low levels as well. We did supersonics, we did high flyers, and we did a lot of head downs or radar work. A lot of it designed for either shooting people down or weather, or for our quick reaction alert, that's QRA, for our QRA operations, where we'd be sitting in the Q shed at the end of the runway. And I did about 250 days, I reckon, in the Q shed at the end of the runway, yeah. Real excitement. About five sort of days of excitement and 245 total boredom watching awful videos that the ground crew got hold of, and I won't go any more into that. But they're very monotonous when you get a sixth one of the day, believe me. So that's really how we started. We do a very small amount of what we call sort of visual tactical stuff, like the low-level affiliation stuff and the air combat side, which a lot of you read about and write about and all the rest of it. We didn't do a huge amount of that. We did the odd bit, mainly, I think, because of the fatigue situation with the aeroplanes. The Mark 6 was very heavily fatigued at the time. It was supposed to go out of service in 76, then 81, then 86, and eventually 88. The aeroplanes were pretty fatigued out, so we're very limited in what we could do in the 6s, whereas the 5s and 3s, the 3s have been in storage for a lot of years and then gone out of storage again, so they had masses of fatigue on them. We could literally pull the wings on every day if we wanted to, and the 5s had even more. So we had to limit all our visual stuff really to flying the 5s and 3s, which limited us hugely on range and hugely on really the amount we could do, because we only had three 3s and 1 5 on the squadron. So it's unlikely to have more than a pair, say, serviceable at any one time. But as the 80s went on, we went gradually more and more into the visual stuff. Obviously the UK's, the air defence role in the UK went very much from a high-level bombing type scenario to a low-level threat. So similarly, our role changed as well, and what changed it probably more than anything else was when the Phantom came into service. When the F4 came along and moved from ground attack into air defence in the mid-70s, whenever it was, about 76 I think they replaced the Lightnings in Germany, 75, 76. When that happened, they suddenly had an aeroplane that could work completely autonomously without any sort of ground control or anything. They could set themselves up on a cap over the North Sea somewhere, or wherever they were, overland, set themselves up. They had the pulse Doppler radar, so it worked overland. They had a pretty good range. It was pretty early day stuff, but it worked pretty well. They had an all-weather missile, which we didn't have. And so they then redesigned the whole of UK air defence around the F4. So that the aeroplane could just go off on exercise, put itself over the North Sea at 6,000 feet, which is normal cap height, and pick up its own targets and work out its own intercepts. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, they then decided, well, we should all fly the same syllabus. So that's what happened. So we ended up really in a situation where we were flying an aeroplane that, quite honestly, certainly wasn't designed for it, and really wasn't suited to it, flying almost autonomous operations at times in the Lightning out over the North Sea, which was quite interesting. Now, a few subjects, that's a bit of background there, so that's how we end up doing all the combat stuff. The other thing is it's very good fun, and so come the last year or two on the squadrons, once they've done the fatigue mods to the aeroplane and we had all this extra fatigue, we thought we might as well use it. And when we actually had an end date, we thought we might as well go do some combat now, having not done a lot for years and with fatigue limited on the Mark 6s, so we did loads of it. So we went around in the last probably year and a half, we probably did as much or more than they ever did in Germany, and within the same sort of period. So we were doing combat and low-level fill all the time, and we started to use bigger and bigger formations, fighting bigger and bigger formations, and the biggest stuff that I ever personally did was on the Tactical Leadership Programme course at Yale, where we were flying around 18 ships, and being attacked by 8 ships and things, flying fighter escort and fighter sweep and all this sort of stuff. So I can talk about that. So I've written down a few things. Okay, well the course was run, it was a NATO course, run for all the NATO nations, and the course was set up like war, basically. It's 4 weeks long, and you turn up, and there were 2 courses that were run. The short-range course and the long-range course. And by short range, I mean range of the aircraft. So needless to say, we were on the short-range course. We could only just about make it to where everybody else was going, and they had to come back again. So, you know, we needed tanking some of the time to go down to South Germany. So we're on the short range course. Long range course are airplanes like Buccaneers, Tornadoes, this sort of stuff. They could have F-111s that could actually, you know, fly around for 4 or 5 hours if they had to. And basically, the setup, you'd have 12 ground attack airplanes, 12 mud movers, and 6 air defenders. And you go out and fight each day. So each day would be one mission, and you go and have war. So you'd start off the course with it was about 4 or 5 days ground school, so it was about a week of ground school, the first week, where you did a lot of sort of tactical stuff, did a lot of just general info stuff on the threat, and then you'd each give 2 lectures. Each group of people, each group of pilots would give 2 lectures, one on the aircraft they're flying, the performance of the aircraft, and one on its weapon system, which in the case of the Lightning, the latter didn't take very long. Sort of filling it with some few jokes or something. So you'd each give a couple of lectures, so that would go on for a bit. You get through the first week, and then you start setting up the scenarios. And the scenarios started with very simple stuff. So the first 3 missions were things like just straight low-level affiliation like we did in the UK. And they pair you up with one of the mud movers. So on my course, I can get this right. On my course, we had 4 A-10s who were actually UK-based. So obviously American. 2 Dutch F-5s, 2 German Alpha Jets, and 4 lunatic Belgian Mirage 5s. They're really nutcases. On the Southern QRA that's done by ourselves, by 11 and 5 here, by 29 on Phantoms at Coningsby, and by what was 23, and I suppose 56 at Waddisham, and then became, of course, 23 on the Falklands, and 74 arrived, and all the rest of it. But the Southern QRA was shared between Waddisham, Coningsby, and ourselves. So we did about 40% of the year, and as I said, 98% of it was absolutely, it was just complete boredom. You do 24 hours in the shed, starting at 9 in the morning, finish at 9 the following day. There'll be the 2 of you with 2 fully live armed aeroplanes. So there are 2 ready-use missiles, 240 rounds of high explosive ammunition, full war load, fueled up, ready to go, all plugged in, and used to work on a readiness state of 10 minutes to airborne or 2 minutes from the cockpit to airborne. So whatever time it was, day or night, if you got a scramble call, if they were stupid enough to scramble you from bed, which actually happened to me the second day I was in there, you know, it's sod's law, it's going to happen to me, it's going to happen to anyone. That's actually what happens, you've got to be airborne in 10 minutes. You know, there's no reason actually to do that, because they've only got hours of warning. It's a last minute decision by someone down at High Wycombe decides to scramble you off, and that's what happens. So generally, the majority of the scrambles we did were practice scrambles. You know, when someone went in for their first day, we'd do a practice scramble, really just to let them see what it's like. And you go in, when you went out at 9 in the morning, you'd accept the aeroplane, sign for it. The ground crew would take each aeroplane off state for about half an hour during the day and just do a quick service on it. Obviously, didn't need a lot. They'd check everything over, and you'd actually set the cockpit up for a quick scramble. So you'd leave a lot of things switched on you wouldn't normally leave on, but because the power was off, it didn't actually matter. But as soon as you got in and hit the gang bar on the right-hand side, all the major switches were on the gang bar. So the only thing you actually had to switch on apart from that was the gyro, the main attitude indicator, because you couldn't leave that switched on. So all you do is hit the gang bar, hit the attitude indicator, strap in. If they'd given you a scramble from the crew room, it was really a case of start 1, start 2, canopy down, you're out the door and you're gone. Hopefully within 10 minutes. I got how many scrambles I got from you actually? I got a few practices, live ones. I think I did about 3 or 4. Probably about 3 or 4 live ones. But I got on my second ever day in the Q shed. It was at night, of course, as well. 1:30 in the morning, the phone rang, and I was on with Vic Allen actually. And we normally had an agreement, a boys' agreement, that if you'd seen a Russian, you'd let the other guy be Q1. So regardless of your seniority on the squadron, you know, you could have done the squadron 15 years. You know, it could be the boss, could be anybody. If you'd actually had a live intercept and got one, you'd let the other guy, even the most junior pilot who was limited combat ready QRA, you'd let him be Q1, so he would get the scramble. However, it didn't always work out like that, because the airplane's got to start for you to actually get airborne. So 25% of the time, Q1 would leave you thinking, yeah, I'm off! We fuck! And that's the end of that. And he's sitting there, of course, you know, sod's law, off goes the other guy, and he gets 2 bare deltas up in the Iceland Pharaoh's Gap. He thinks, I don't believe, I thought another 10 years. You know, that often used to be what happened. Well, yeah, we didn't have that many. I'm trying to think how many we probably had in a year. They normally gave us scrambles, really, for the hell of it. I've never known of a scramble that was actually for Southern QRA, because the country being divided in half. I've never known of us be scrambled off, say, and sent down to the English Channel. I mean, it just didn't happen. You know, we weren't just there for Russians, we were there for light aircraft that have got lost, airliners that have got lost in distress, anything like that. We used to practice that as well. You know, we used to fly sorties. One of the OPEX sorties we used to do was a simulated QRA profile. And if you're the target, you could decide what you're going to do. You could go up there and simulate a radio failure by flying triangles. You could do what you like. You could pretend to be an airline, you could pretend to be anything. And then the guy had to lead you back. So you get the junior pilot, or whoever he was, to come past and give all the signals and waggle his wings and lead you back and all this stuff. So we used to fly lots of different profiles to try and teach the guys to do this. There's nothing quite like doing it for real. But I got this scrambler on my second ever day in the Q shed at 1:30 in the morning, and the phone rang, and all it was, apparently all they said on the phone was scrambler. And I was on with Chris Allen, and he'd actually got a couple of Bear Deltas the previous year. So he said to me, you know, all right, Porky, you're on your Q1. I thought, oh, right, great, Q1, second day in the Q shed, here we go. First day, of course, I'd have a practice just to see what it was like. And gone up and just done bought some holes in the sky, done some intercepts with someone. And then, you know, and all he did was he answered the phone. We saw both of those, 2 beds there, and I should say we had about 6 ground crew with us in there as well. In the other room, the separate room, and a kitchen. And they cooked for us, which could be a real disaster. There's 1 or 2 people who could tell you about that. Anyway, almost as disastrous as the films, actually. And the phone rang, and Speak Alan, he answered the phone, and he just went, yeah, right, put the phone down and ran out the door. And I'm lying there and he said, what's going on, what's happening? Subscribe! And off he went, hits the bell, there's a bell we had, so he hit the bell rings throughout the building. He went herring out the door, and I thought, I think I'm going to have a wee first, thank you very much. So I did, got in, and it was, as soon as I plugged in, the telebrief's already in the aeroplane, which goes straight to ops underground cables. And as soon as I plugged in, they said, right, you know, this is whatever, whoever it was born upon. Scramble, 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 and off I went. And I got airborne out of here, what was it, 1:22 in the morning. As I climbed away, they said, you know, call Midland, which we normally did. And they said, right, the tanker's on your nose, range 10 miles, crossing right to left, 15,000 feet, climbing out Morrill. What? So within about 5 minutes of being in bed, or 7 minutes, I was actually in behind the tanker. I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to get in, plugged into the tanker, but it was about a Beam Lucas. It took a long, I thought I wasn't going to get in, which is probably the worst possible thing that can happen, you know, your first live scramble, your second time over in the Q shed. I'm used to tank every day almost, so it's something you do, you know, you do in your sleep. I think I probably was in my sleep actually, but I could not for the life of me get plugged into this tanker, and eventually, I don't know, I tried every hose, every direction, backed off for 10 minutes, went back, and then eventually, I don't know even which hose I got in the end, it was a Victor, pitch black, and eventually I got this thing in, and God knows how. But we ended up at 64 degrees north, 10 west, which is a long way north. It's about 500 miles northwest of Lossiemouth. And they're sitting there saying, you get hungry back there, are you? And I said, no, I'm starving. Die for a pig. 25,000 feet, going round and round in circles on cat, you know, about 1,000 miles from Bimbrook or something. Looking at the sea down there, it's a bit cold down there. If this thing catches fire, I'm going to be swimming a long way home. I don't know how to walk away from this. And we sat there for 5 hours. And the bears that were knocking around disappeared, they went low level. And in fact, it was the standard Cuba run they used to do. They used to come around across the top of the Iceland Faroes, gone down sort of either the Irish Sea or around the west of Ireland. And they knew they were coming. Some days they knew they were coming exactly what time they're going to be there. But I've heard all sorts of stories of people, you know, bears going low level and people chase them at low level and all the rest of it. But this was, you know, this was a normal case. It would often happen. We'd get up there. Of course, it should have been a northern QRA scramble because it was up north of Lucas, but you know, we hadn't had one for 3 months or 6 months. They thought they'd give us a go, you know. You know, the boys are going to sit there for weeks on end. We might as well let them have a go. So that was it. That was a pretty typical Q scramble. But I don't know. Quite a few people did get QRA intercepts out of here.
Did it in fact happen on the last week, and slightly later?
Because we could go to, well, legally 625, 650, but a lot more. Obviously at height, we have the beating of them. So a Harrier is a sort of aeroplane you want to fight high up if you possibly could, given a choice. So fighting a Harrier, low level of field, if you were fighting, you know, when I went out to Germany, did a week, when I was quite a young lad actually, I went out and did a week or 12 or 10 days at Gütersloh, fighting big packages. I exercised out at Gütersloh, and I was down in Area 3, which is sort of down near Munich with all the hills and, you know, valleys and stuff down there. Really good flying area, very difficult to pick people up. And the Harrier, you know, it's quite a difficult aeroplane to see as well, it's quite small. And you know, if they're flying an 8-ship, and they're missile armed as well, you've got a real problem. You know, it's okay if you happen to roll in behind the back guy, because he's got no one behind him, 5 miles behind him. But if they're flying around, you know, in a card formation, which they tend to do, and they're sort of 3 miles, 5 miles apart, and they're missile armed, obviously you roll in between the sections of the card, you're going to get, you know, blown away before you've got anybody. But once they start turning at low level, they're quite difficult, because they do turn quite well, low down, and they've got the performance, obviously they've got power. But the VIF thing that everybody goes on about, I remember watching on TV during the Falklands War, you know, probably in the mess here, sitting watching it, and seeing this thing on BBC, you know, and they had this we had this Argentine Mirage, and here's the Argentine Mirage, he's flying along like that, and there's the Harrier, the Sea Harrier, you know, and they're flying along, and the Sea Harrier goes woof, woo, ching, bang, dead. And they showed this little cartoon of this thing doing this, saying, this is what it does, the Harrier's a wonderful aeroplane. Well, actually, it's a load of rubbish. Because when he vids, he actually goes plan form. So if you get a Harrier, I tell you, it makes your eyes water. If you're at sort of almost gun range behind a Harrier, it's his last ditch manoeuvre. It's what we call a last ditch manoeuvre, because after that, he is going nowhere. He's going to be at 100 knots, sitting duck. And in a multiple environment, you know, someone else, if you don't shoot him because you overshoot, someone else, your mate's going to have him straight away for breakfast. So, I mean, he's absolute sitting duck. And the best thing to do, I always found that if a Harrier VIFs was to go up, okay, if you could, get round in one way or the other, or just go vertical, you know. And as long as you got above him, you could roll over above him, look down, and there he is. And it doesn't matter which way he's going. It's like sitting on the North Pole. It doesn't matter which way he's going, you're going to shoot him. You're going to be behind him. It doesn't matter which way, any which way. And I always thought, well, you know, it's a joke. And in fact, when you fought experienced Harrier pilots, they didn't VIF. They didn't do it because all they'll do is wash off. You know, they'll go from 300 knots. And in combat, you know, energy is what it's all about. You want the maximum energy you can have, either by height, by virtue of the height you're at, or by virtue of the speed you've got. So once you're actually in a fight, you want energy. And the last thing you want to do in a mugs game is to chuck energy away. Now, if you're fighting, let's say, I mean, very unrealistic, but in training, if you're fighting 1v1 against another aeroplane, so you know the threat is just one other aeroplane, you might, you know, to get the kill, to beat him, you might say, okay, I'm going to throw everything away in one manoeuvre. I'm going to chuck everything away, I'm just going to reef it in like you do a rotor at the end of the runway, you know. You just reef the aeroplane, flying through you so he can't turn, and then roll him behind him and shoot him. Yeah, yeah, good stuff, great, I got the kill, I beat you, wonderful. In real life, it isn't like that, because someone else is going to come up and shoot you. So the last thing you're ever going to do in combat is throw away energy. You know, it's daft. And you know, you only see the very inexperienced guys in Harriers chucking energy away. Once you started fighting multiple combats, it's daft, because they just get shot. You know, it's stupid, just sitting duck. Just fix the boom, and then they used to get this bit of hose, 12 feet of hose, with two universal joints, one at either end, and they'd attach this to the end of the boom. So what you're going to have in flight is the aeroplane flying along, with the boom attached to the aircraft, and then the universal joint, 12 feet of hose, and a universal joint, and a basket. And we had to all get qualified on this blooming thing, and at the time I'd only done about, I don't know, I'd done about a year on the squadron. And so it decided, right, everyone at Bimbrook, or those that weren't 135 qualified, would all go and get qualified. So we had pairs going, I think 12, was it? Oh, more than 12 actually, I think there's 12 on our squadron. I think we had 20 aeroplanes going on this 135 in the space of about 2 hours. We had a slot out on Area 5 up on the North Sea, about 100 miles from here. So we're northeast 100 miles. And we all went up there, and I was first up, you know. So I thought, this is great, you know. I had all these stories. People had come back with a whole refuelling boom missing, ripped off by 135. Probes left in baskets, baskets ripped off, the whole hose ripped off the back of the 135. I mean, these stories abound. It was bloody difficult. I think if I had to go at it a few years later with a bit more experience, I probably would have found it a little bit easier. But it was not easy. Tony Paxton was in the back of it as well, taking pictures. He went down the moon or got a ride with them, sat in a boom position, killing himself laughing, because he'd done it, so he didn't have to get qualified. But you used to have to come up right behind this thing. And whereas our hoses would just sit nice and steady, they were really good. This thing moves around quite a bit. You have to sit about 2 feet behind it, and you had to go in 2 feet, right 2 feet, up 2 feet. Literally like that. And the hose would bend and make a big U bend. So you'd sit there with the boom, you could just see the probe here, with the probe sticking out, the basket on the end, and a big U, and then the boom next to it. And the idea was to get it just right, this nice U-shaped link, so it had two universal joints, they both went like that, and the fuel flowed. Now, if it didn't do that, what it would quite often do is, well, A, you wouldn't get in. A lot of people, I mean, the first 20 stabs I had on it, I nearly came straight out again, because I was afraid of ripping the probe off. Because the probe had all these weak links around it anyway, so that if you put a side force on it, it would rip it off. So the last thing we do is leave it off, because the chance that you leave it in the basket, we spent months trying to get this 135, I didn't want to leave 19 guys with no refueling, because I'd left mine in there. But eventually I did get this thing in. And what it would sometimes do, if it went a bit wrong and you got a bit far away, is the big loop would just go whiz round a couple of times. And do a couple of quick, and off would go the probe, you know. So they were really difficult aeroplane to tank off. So when we did this QRA back in about 82 or 83, during the Falklands War, we were all dreading it. The thought of night tanking, this was by day, the thought of actually going up at night in cloud on a 135, you know, it doesn't bear even thinking about. Our own tankers were all very straightforward, really. I mean, I learnt on Victors, like most people did. So, I mean, it's very straightforward. Different people use different ways of doing it. When you first start, you line up with one of the lines, In fact, I used to use the aileron trim tab when I first started, and the left aileron, I think, had a little trim tab on it on the aileron. If you line up exactly on that and ran the hose down the DI that was on top of the cone, the thing airplane just goes straight in every single time. Just ignore the basket, just goes straight in every time, over on a coconut. But after a while, you sort of got the hang of that and you start watching the basket. So I used to think, well, how close can I get up? And you sit there and just rattle it around, just put about 1% going, you just dink it in. Get all the clever stuff going. The Vulcan was quite interesting because, again, that was a centre hose. That's where I lost my only pro tips on a Vulcan because the hose wasn't primed. And the hose sat much higher than the Victor centre hose ever did because this big box was right on the back of it between the engines. So you've got these 4 bloody great engines. And this hose coming at the back, you sit there with your fin actually in the jet wash. Just sitting there with the rudders tramping and the aeroplane shaking. And we put down all the warp fins we had in about 86, 87 to that, which John Spencer did, because we actually thought it was down to air combat, all the combat we were doing, but we didn't want to tell them that because they'd stop us doing it. So it's down to the Vulcan tankers, definitely, these rivets are coming out. And the Air Force believed us. Whether it was or not, I have no earthly idea, but that's the story and we're sticking to it. But anyway, the Vulcan was okay. It just had the one centre hose. Apart from that and the turbulence, it was okay, but what happened sometimes is the hose wasn't primed. The first time I ever tank topped one, if the hose wasn't primed with fuel, it was light. You couldn't tell, it just hung normally. And when you hit it, of course, this great ripple goes straight up at it to the end, comes back in, and you go, oh no! And there goes the probe tip. Left it in the basket, so it's hanging out in the basket, and oh dear, I've got a hole in my refueling probe, and there's my probe tip sitting in the basket, no one else can go tanking. Which is, and the guys don't like it either, the tanker drivers, if you're first up and they're sitting there with full fuel, they can't go anywhere. They've got the hose stuck out, they've got your probe tip in it, they've got nothing. They're not allowed to jettison fuel unless they've got an emergency, and they're sitting there for hours on end and not being able to give any away. So, the VC-10, the aeroplane I find out, the 747, again, the wings are up above the fuselage in flight. They're way up above the fuselage. As the aeroplane lifts off, they go like this, and sort of clap hands if you watch one from behind. And the VC-10's like that. And the first few times I went on a 10, I thought, this is weird. Why do I keep turning side? I end up like this, flying along like this, lining up the wings. The obvious thing to do is line the wing up across the windscreen, and you're sitting there, and you suddenly look at the attitude again, they've got 10 degrees of bank on. Why is that? You've got a bit of rudder here and a bit of that there. Everything's cross-controlled. This is very difficult, this aeroplane. Can't cope with this at all. I don't know, I was finding it so easy. The other thing is you've got some really weird vortices off it. The ailerons, like the Victor, they'd have the ailerons sort of upfloat in flight disabled fatigue. As you went one side of the aileron hinge or the other, the aeroplane would change its trim. So normally before you plugged in, you'd set the trim on the aeroplane for whichever side you're on. So if you're on the left side of the tank, you go half a left rudder, half a left aileron, and just plug it in. And it'd be just about right when you're sitting in because all the force is off the wing. But with the VC-10, if you had one side of the aileron or the other, looking at it, literally within about 6 inches, all the trim on the aeroplane would change. It was quite interesting. The centre hose on it was amazing though. Apart from what I said about seeing the fin above your head, I remember on exercise, they had the centre hose out one day and I was plugged in, I didn't even change the power for about 10 minutes. It literally towed you around the sky. You could just sit there and just park the power at about what it was, 88% or something like that. And you sit there and it literally drive you around the sky. It was so phenomenally stable. I never had to go to TriStar. I had to go to the Buccaneer, as I said. I had to go to walk the Buccaneer, which is very interesting. It's like real close formation, normal fighter close formation, but actually plugged into a hose. And you get some very interesting vortices of the wings. It's quite an unusual angle. It's very highly swept. So that's quite an interesting aeroplane to tank on as well. What else? That's probably about it. I can't think of any others I've tanked on. So that's it. There's enough on tanking for you. Bored with that, yeah.
Talking to an Italian pilot last week, and he was trying to wind himself about driving on the wrong side of the road. He said, not only do you do that, but also when you rendezvous with a tanker, you come in on a different side to what we do as well.
Yeah.
So, which is absolutely unbelievable. He said that they haven't actually got it together, that we all come in on the same
Well,
side.
we always used to join on the left and leave on the right. When I was doing it, we always joined on the left and left on the right. However, these days, I believe, I'm not sure, I think they join on the right and leave on the left, which probably is the way that everybody else does it, but it changed. But we used to do quite interesting tanking. We used to do, well, we're talking about tanking, it's reminding me of something. We used to do night lights out, all sorts of stuff on our normal training, but things like some of the exercises, like Coffee Charming, which is the night ECM exercise, all this jamming going on the radio, there'll be lots of spokes on the radar, you just go off to your bit of sky, your cam. There'll be all these, it could be anything, it could be Falcon 20s from Norway, could be our Canberras, our ECM Canberras, could be F-111s at low level at 5,000 feet. And you have certain sanctuary heights you fly, but you also have the tankers up there. So not only that, you've got Lightnings up there, Phantoms on our side, you've got friendly stuff, you've got our friendly tankers, you've got all these other aeroplanes milling around the North Sea, You can't hear anything on the radio, it's all being jammed out by Queen or whatever they put on, you know, Flash! Oh, I think, oh God. What's worse than that is they used to record what you said and play it back to you 20 minutes later. And that was very clever. And they'd caught a lot of people out by our cameras, used to sit with a tape recorder. And they record the controller. So you'd say, you know, 21, vector 040, target low level, 30 miles, high speed, heading, whatever. And they record this, and then 30 minutes later they say, you know, mission 35, vector 020, and they go right, he's off! And he's zoomed off into the boondocks somewhere over the North Sea, and they haven't given him that at all, they're just playing back the tape again and again. But one thing we used to do on that was we used to do silent tanking, and that's one of the reasons, one of the only times we sort of operationally silent tanking. Obviously, in the wartime you might have to do it. But we used to silent tank on that, so you have to, in the middle of all this melee of aeroplanes all over the sky, and I've had a lot of very near mid-airs doing coffee charlies. You know, you've been flying around and look around, so there's the belly of the camera up above you or something. I mean, it was amazing. So we had what we called a sanctuary at 2,000 feet. Normally it's sort of 14 to 16,000 feet, so based around 15 and 25. And those would be our sanctuaries, probably 5 as well, where we could go and there'd only be friendly forces in there. So we know the cameras wouldn't be there, the 111s would be there, whoever else was out jamming that day wouldn't be in there. So the only thing you've got to worry about is your mate hitting you, which I'm not sure is better or worse, but depends who it is. But I mean, there'll be all of you in there, and what you'd have to do then is find the tanker, get there without hopefully hitting anybody, nip up behind the tanker, 2 miles behind him, 2,000 feet below, slide up to him. And I've actually been sitting 2 miles in the waiting position. If you had 2 guys on the wing, you had to wait behind. And I've actually been on a coffee charlie sitting there, 2,000 feet behind the tanker, and a Phantom's coming belly up to me, straight across the front of me, rolled out about, right in guns range, 200 yards in front of me. I was sitting in the 2-seater with Phil Grice, and just sitting there watching him, thinking, that's good. You know, he didn't look very well, did he? And he's like navigator looking for him as well. So it's like a lot of things, you know, like doing combat with your belly check. When you join a tanker, especially silent, you have a really good look who's in behind, who's joining, who's leaving, and use the radar to sort of, your brain sort of gets to work after a while, after a few years, to look at the picture and try and analyse who's where they're going, what heading they're on, what's happening in behind and leaving. And you'd be very careful about how you came in 2 miles an hour, especially silent, without any control. When you come up on the left wing, he'd turn some lights off to let you know you're clearing behind, you go in behind, he'd give you a green light, you go and plug, he'd flash the green to say you can stay in or you can leave, because we always stayed until we get the maximum fuel, it didn't last very long anyway. And then he'd put an amber on to say, okay, you're clear to disconnect, you go to the right side, and you nip off. And on a coffee charlie, which might last 2 or 3 hours, you could do that several times during the night. So we used to do it silent as well, in all sorts of conditions. So I'll tell you something funny actually. I think it's funny. You know, I could never work this out. I used to sit behind, so many times I've sat behind Victors and things. I thought, what on earth is he doing? What is going on? He's all over the sky, this bloke, you know. He's shaking about all over the place, the baskets everywhere, there's an aeroplane shaking up and down. What is going on? Must have an absolutely crappy autopilot. I don't understand it, you know. What he's got to do is hold the aeroplane straight level. It's not difficult, is it? I could never understand this until I started flying airlines. And suddenly I encountered clear air turbulence. I thought, oh, it's bumpy up here, isn't it? So I never known it was bumpy. Because the lightning's such a high wing loader, I never encountered any clear air turbulence. Just fly along, nothing at all, no bumps. And if you flew someone's jet washes, any time you feel anything. And so we'd be sitting there, probably that day that I got that scramble from QRA, it might well have been, you know, moderate clear air turbulence all the way to Lucas. I don't know. I still don't know to this day, but it might have been. But I didn't feel anything. I wasn't being bounced around at all. So, you know, so I used to criticise those guys all the time, for God's sake, give it stay! And in fact, you know, it might have been a really bumpy day. In which case, why didn't they change their height? Well, that's another story. But I didn't know, so I'm just sitting there, it's absolutely beautifully smooth, so I wouldn't know.
It's 3 o'clock just now. Target is to be back down here probably about, if everything goes well, back down here about 4 o'clock for a bit of a debrief and you know, fill you in and everything else that's happening, and then off you go home. Safe journey back. See you later. About 4 o'clock down here. Right, you're going up, mate.
It's still well waxed up anyway.
From here, round on the track beside the grass there, down to the end, marshal it to the right, go up onto the other part of the runway, come down the runway here, bring it down here, and then do a 360 turn, so a slow 360 turn so you can see it from all angles. So as far as the safety aspect is concerned, if you stay on the grass, which is up that side of the hangar there, or down this side of the building here, back behind about that line, everything will be okay and there won't be any problem with the jet wash. So particularly when it's actually moving, if you could stay on the grass to the side of the hangar but without actually going onto the track, or in this kind of 30-40 feet here while it's turning when it comes back. So hopefully it will move a reasonable distance. While it's actually turning, try and keep them sort of behind this light. They'll still get a fairly, warm draft from the engine as it turns round. But basically,
Fenders and then down more forgotten.
yeah.
So I've got to move it back. I forgot them.
Glad it worked. See you again.
Nice to see it moving.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just the time.
Roll them around a bit.
Well, that's right.
Nice old day. Yeah, the number one was okay with it.
Yep, fine.
She runs nice and cool.
It was quite cool. Yeah. I had about 70% on number one.
Yeah, we had it, took it up to 75 this morning to check kind of why Jenny worked.
Say by Jennifer, right?
Is your brake indicator not working?
Yeah, good.
And we're going to have a debrief tonight.
Here we go.
Okay.
What is that thing? I'm going to get exterminated, get lasered here. It's always like this, it's never flat calm here, ever.
It was 4 years ago it was. 4 years ago we did the aircraft ball. It was a red hot day and there wasn't a breath of wind.
The only problem was it was so full of flies.
Flat calm, red hot. I'll tell Ted I've seen you anyway.
He's an absolute maniac in that thing, honestly. He really is.
He's a really good pilot.
He is very good. He is very good. And they're buying Delphins. And he said to me, I'm looking for someone else to sit in the number 2 and then we're going to do some formation in this Delphin. You know. And I was sort of saying, Ted, you're not serious. He said, yeah, we'll teach him in this. I don't know, we'll find someone else then.
Getting albatrosses as well now.
Yeah, they are. They've got. I've seen one. Yeah. I've seen it down there. Yeah, I was down in the summer flying. We did a detachment down there for 5 weeks. It was 5 bulldogs, and I went down there, and they were.
The Delphin there is the best display I've seen by a Delphin. Because the next time I saw one of Ted's shorts.
Oh, one of his?
One of his
dogs.
Yeah, we talked, and I says to him, was that one of your Delphins? He said, yeah. I said, well, that's the best display I've seen by a Delphin yet. He says, oh. I said, you can tell that, you know, I said, try and do the Delphins low powered. Keep maximum power on and keep the speed up all the time.
The way to do it. Well, that's the safe way as well.
Yeah.
Speed is groovy. It's not going to get wet here.
Right.
Well, on the picture or down here?
Well, where you like?
So I'll do it down here, rather than on the picture.
Do it down there and on the picture, if you don't mind.
Sure?
Yeah.
When was the last time you flew the Lightning? Was that over North Coast? Or was it
No,
delivered?
4 days later. It was I was the last person ever to land a Lightning here. It was the Thursday afternoon. Did they leave on a Friday? I can't remember. I think it was the Thursday afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock. I went over with Chris BP. We did 1v1 with a tanker up for about 3 hours. I came back and I decided the next morning I'd said to John Spencer, right, 1v1 in the overhead, I want to take you on, boy. Being a big head, I thought I'll go and take John Spon on 1v1, which really is asking for it. And I said, I'll fly with you, because they'd already decided that the aeroplanes would be delivered by John Aldington and Paul Cooper. So the only other people left were myself and Spawn. And I said, right, why don't we fly them both? We'll fly 1v1 in the overhead for the troops, and then the airplanes will land, we'll refuel them, and they'll go off. And I talked to him, he was the station commander at the time, so I talked him into it. So, and he wanted to be the last person to land at Bimbrook. He said, I want to be the last person to land, so that was why we're going to do it. So we do the 1v1, I'd land, he'd land, they'd refuel, they'd then go, and he'd be the last one to ever land at Bimbrook.
Yeah.
What actually happened was I flew the previous afternoon with Chris Berners-Price. We came in, and I had to do Fred's farm. Fred isn't here today, but Fred's got a farm over there somewhere.
Yeah.
And Fred wanted to beat up at his farm. We're on the way back to the airfield. Oh shit, Fred's farm. And we looked at it on an Odin survey map. I always just see him down the Blacksmith's Arms. So I had to find this farm building, which is the end of the downwind leg. I think exactly that way, State Lavelle way. And eventually I found him, and I sort of found this farm. Chris BP landed. I thought I better go and do Fred's farm. I didn't promise him. So I went and aimed straight at the firehouse. At this point, they were in the fields. Apparently, it was just tea break time, and I could see them all. So I just aimed straight at them. Aimed straight at them from the downwind leg, and this Fred going, "Ah, Porky, ah!" Stuck the heaters in right over the top, just tipped over and landed. You see, and I thought nothing of it. Landed here at about, I don't know, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Did a little run over the crash gate out there. Broke the circuit, landed. Came the next morning expecting to fly, and John Spencer came and said, "I've got a cold, Porky. Can't fly." So that's it. He said it's too difficult. If one of the aeroplanes go US or it all gets a bit out of hand on the 1v1, it'd be very silly. Let's let them go. Let's just let them go. And I went, oh shit, I'm going to do a 1v1 against you. He said, I know, but I've got a cold and I'm not flying and nor are you. And they're going, shut up. So that's what happened. And it suddenly occurred to me after they'd gone that I was the last person to land at Bimbrook. Because I landed the previous afternoon. I was the last one to land. All because of Fred's farm. It could have been Chris BP, but it wasn't. And I did let him deliver the Bruntingthorpe aeroplane, so he got away with that. He begged me to do that, so I was going to do it. He begged me, and he was really keen to do it. I said, well, do it then. He did it. So keep going on about it ever since. I just had to be writing the programme for the day, and we had the delivery on. You know, we did. I mean, all the deliveries I did were for battle damage repair, and I delivered 754 to Onington, and they cut it up within half an hour. My aeroplane got cut up. I mean, you know, all the ones I did was cut up.
Because Blackie took one to Cyprus, didn't he?
He did. That was a good one to do. Yeah, he did. He did it with John Aldington. I think he did it with John Aldington, and I think Paul Cooper might have done it. But they tanked out. I think they took a pair, didn't they? They tanked out.
T5.
Left it there, and that's apparently beautiful. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's beautiful. I've seen a picture of it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So they did that. Yeah, that was a good one to do. I did the fly past for the Olverton one, but I didn't actually deliver the aeroplane. Jaron took his aeroplane, and I did the beat up. But he actually took it. He took it in that morning, and I think the idea was that, actually he might have come in after me, I don't know, but if you were there, I did the beat up, that was me. He decided that he was too senior to go doing beat ups, his career was worth too much. He said, would you go and do the beat up for me, legally of course, and I'll deliver the airplane. I thought, thanks boss, yeah, very nice of you. Yeah, I'm going to get in the shit, all the noise complaints and everything, he's going to just drop in there and deliver it, so I did that.
Because he had to land it the other side. He was telling me he had to land it either side of the tarmac, didn't he?
That's probably right. I don't know. I didn't land. I just went and beat it up and flew over the museum and that stuff for the guys all there.
I came up on the base a few days after.
There's still one at there's one at Coningsby, not Coningsby. There's one at Leaming. 753s at Leaming.
Yeah, they're keeping that though, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. At one time they were going to bloody get rid of it, and then it was, you know, a decoy. They come up with all reasons, but they've still got it. And I was really pleased. In fact, that aeroplane was, when I joined 11 Squadron, that was the boss's airplane. That was Bravo Alpha. That was Doug Elwood's aeroplane.
What sort of condition is it now?
Well, it's outside. Last time I saw it was a long, long time ago. It was all right. Yeah, it was pretty good. They repainted it and they'd done stuff to it. It looked really good last time I saw it.
Now, the picture
It always was camouflage.
Yeah.
The aeroplane always was camouflage.
I hate it was always camouflage.
Yeah, it was Alpha on 11 Squadron when I joined the squadron. It was Doug Elwood's aeroplane, and then it was John Spencer's aeroplane. And then 728 came along.
That's right, he took that.
Yeah. But he and I kept the same aeroplane in different places. It was quite funny. You know, I was just very lucky that my aeroplane 901 was on 11. Get the thing
DIY.
started. Yeah. I said, right, you get the nitrogen bottles and you take this bloody lead off and you plug that in there and you swap the bloody fuses over and then you do this. Then you get the hammer and bang it there.
Yeah.
And then you run the nitrogen and then you know. So he told us all this stuff because we staged to Cyprus. And I'd heard about Chris Lawrence, Savage, had actually ended up somewhere where we didn't have ground crew support, with one running, everybody else in the formation's running except him, and they're all going to go without him. And he actually climbed up the cockpit with one running. Hang on, wait for it, and got the other one running. And we heard the story back at Bimbrook. That's 5 Squad. I was on 11.
Yeah.
And I thought, bloody hell, I don't believe he did that. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And we all said, and when he got back, I said, did you do that? He said, yeah, I did. So, well, I had no choice. Yeah. They're going to go without me. I'm in Brindisi.
Yeah.
With no ground crew support. I'm in the bloody nowhere. Have you been to Brindisi? It's the biggest shithole on earth. So he said, I'm not staying there. So I went and did it, and it worked. I thought, it's bloody impressive, that.
Yeah.
5 years later, I'm at the air show at Neuburg. We'd had a squadron exchange with the F4Fs from the Molders at Neuburg. A really good bunch of pissheads, actually, great guys. And they said, come down, Porky, you must come to the air show, we have a great weekend, it will be great fun. I thought, great. So they got John Aldington to go when he did the display. So I got a tanker, because he's in a Mark III, so I couldn't make it. So I arranged a tanker, and we got a Victor, and he took us right to the FR boundary with France, or Belgium actually. Turned right up to Coxey on the boundary, stopped on the boundary, we plugged up, we filled up, I had my aeroplane actually. No, I insisted on taking my own aeroplane. Great, good idea, Al. So I took 901 and off we went, got to the boundary, they left us, we flew to Neuburg, we landed, we had a great weekend, BJ did his display, bloody fantastic display as it always was, second year he did it and it was a brilliant display. I got pissed, fell over, left the airplane on static, sold loads of prints and zaps like I do, had a good time, came out Monday morning, would the bloody thing start? Would it hell? I'm in Germany, I haven't even got the RAF exchange, so I'm at the German airfield. Near Munich, 8 miles from Munich, there's an aeroplane that won't start. And I got one running, and I couldn't get another running. Not only that, but we didn't have F-34, which is our fuel. We had F-40, which has got a lower specific gravity. It's crap fuel, it's the NATO fuel, which means you carry about 600 or 800 pounds less. Neuburg is 650 miles from Limburg, which is about 6,500 pounds of fuel. So it's sporty at the best of times. We wanted to go via Bruggen or Wildenrath, and BJ had to in the Mark III. And eventually I couldn't get the number 2 running, so I shut it down. I had six starts because I topped up the airpin tank at Bimbra, which you weren't allowed to do. So they topped it up hot with it running. So at least I had 6 starts. I'd used one. Went into the lineup, said, right, I got to phone Bimbra. It took me about half an hour to get through. Talked to the engineers, right boys, give it to me straight. And I go, they can start yet. So, right, take off the bloody lead, swap the starter leads over, try that first, I'll try the fuses, then the leads, then try taking off the pipe to the air motor, blow some nitrogen through, then this, then that. So I got in, had another go, wouldn't start. Went back and said, right, there's one last thing. Did you hit the hammer in that place? Yeah, I hit the hammer. So get the ground crew. So I got this ground crew in German, didn't speak English, up on the wing. I said, there's the point. I said, they're right on that point, that box there. You're going to get that hammer. When I go now, you go, bop, 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 bop with the hammer. He did it, didn't work. I'd be with one option. So I thought, okay, I have one shot left. If I didn't get this going, they were going to have to fly out spares and ground crew in the T5 from the UK, double hot, horrendous. So I got in, I thought, sorry, I got the number 1 going. I got this all or nothing. I got the number 1 going, I got my handkerchief out, tied it around the parking brake, really tight, climbed out the ladder, on the wing, opened the avpin hatch, one engine's running, got chopped, one engine's running, swapped over the nitrogen lead, blew through the nitrogen, did the whole lot, blew the nitrogen, swapped the fuses, swapped the starter boxes, did it all up, so I couldn't do it without it, shut it down, all back up, turned round, and all the other guys who'd done the static display, the ground crew, the pilots, the F-16 drivers, the Air Force, and they're all around in a huge room on the aeroplane with cameras. I thought, oh shit, got cameras of me up there with the engine running. Climbed in and it went. And I looked at the fuel, thought, shit, I'm not going to make it home. Just made it. Just got airborne. It's the first time I've ever flown a Lightning unrefueled, 650 miles in a Mark 6. And we got back just. But the good thing was, at least if I didn't quite make it, I could have lobbed into Watersham on the way back. I had to go to somewhere with this Lightning experienced guys. So it wasn't the end of the world. But I mean, I think of that. I mean, I haven't got a picture of it. It's like quite a lot of these things. You haven't got a photograph. I'd love to see a photograph of it. I'm sure there's a lot of people with photographs of it.
Well,
bloody funny.
We'll do that story for the next review, mate. And we'll ask for a photograph.
Yes, for a photograph. No, it would have to be a German. Have to be one of the German ground crew. The guys at the air show were taking pictures. There'd be nobody English there because it was Munich.
Just to say a big thank you to everybody that's been involved. Ron and his family, Wendy and Ian, without whom this wouldn't happen. All the guys and the girls and the cadets, everybody that's pitched up today and just given us your support by pitching up, we really, really appreciate it. It's just by the numbers here that give the thing the atmosphere and that make it good for everybody else. It's a self-generating thing. So if you want to sort of cruise around for a bit yet, you can do. The lads will be coming down from the field shortly, and a safe journey home, and hopefully see you again next year. Many thanks.